Huge important news is happening for millions of Americans. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have proposed new bills that will help senior citizens across the United States. Some Social Security, SSI, and SSDI beneficiaries are actually receiving a bonus benefit boost, everybody, and this could be worth up to $200. Yes, that's right, $200 can be going into your bank account if you qualify for it. So just continue to watch this video because we have a ton of news to go about this. At the start of 2022, everybody, benefits, Social Security benefits that is, rose by 5.9% to an account for the uptick in inflation levels, but this year's rate of inflation has actually surpassed last year's. This means that a much larger COLA is about to happen. Early in the year, some experts were predicting as much as an 11% raise for seniors on Social Security for 2023 next year. So that's probably not going to happen, but it is a raise in the vicinity of 9%. So last year's positive news for 5.9% COLA was offset by the announcement that the Medicare Part B premium will be rising from $148 to $170. So since seniors are mostly enrolled in both programs, they have Medicare Part B premiums deducted from their Social Security benefits directly. But this year, seniors actually don't have to worry about a repeat scenario. Medicare recently announced that the standard Part B premium for 2023 will actually be lower than what it was in 2022. So $165, that's $164, everybody. Currently, it's looking like seniors on Social Security will actually get to keep their COLAs, rather than lose a portion of it to Medicare Part B cost. And some on Social Security cannot work and collect benefits at the same time, but they can also run into trouble once their income exceeds a certain threshold, because at that point, there is the potential for some of their Social Security income to be withheld. Many Social Security recipients have struggled this year in the wake of inflation, and the combination of a giant COLA with a Medicare Part B hike is definitely some news. In a recent press release, the Senior Citizens League noted that, among other things, the purchasing power of Social Security dollars has declined by a whopping 40% since 2000. So what $100 is Social Security income used to buy now in 2000 can only pay $60 worth in the current day. Now, the Social Security Administration has actually recently estimated that the Social Security benefits make up a collective 30% of income for elderly Americans. It's a sizable chunk, though the Senior Citizens League worries that next year's increase is not enough to address many people's needs, and it's true. While things are going up, seniors definitely can't afford things as prices are outstanding and incredible. Rhode Island governor, though, is trying to make a difference. He announced a new program to provide financial relief to parents across the state. The new Rhode Island Child Tax Credit Rebate Plan is part of the 2023 fiscal year budget. It sets aside payments of $250 per child with a limit of 3 per children. It means that families across the state struggling with the rising cost of food and gas and consumer goods could receive as much as $750 in a year. Now, in a press release, the governor described the plan as a sensible way and critical way to keep things going. The House Speaker has also stressed the importance of providing relief and cited rising costs and noted the decision was widely supported in the state legislature. Not only that, everybody, but
Madam President, I rise to discuss helping our service members exposed to toxic burn pits. Let me tell you about U.S. Army Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson. He was a strong, healthy, fit combat medic who served tours in Kosovo and Iraq. When he returned home, however, he began experiencing fatigue. He started bleeding from his ears and nose and completely lost his voice. After consulting multiple doctors, he and his wife were sitting in an exam room, waiting for test results when the doctor came in with tears in his eyes. He explained that Sergeant Robinson had an extremely rare form of stage 4 lung cancer and exclaimed, "What have you been exposed to?" Sergeant Robinson thought back to his tour in Iraq. He remembered seeing and smelling smoke from pits the size of football fields at his base near Baghdad. While serving in Iraq, Afghanistan, and beyond, millions of U.S. troops have lived and worked near burn pits. They're basically burning trash heaps that the military has used for decades to dispose of everything from human waste to trash and electronics and jet fuel. And they spew forth many of the same dangerous toxins that were at Ground Zero after 9/11. The VA estimates that 3.5 million service members were exposed to burn pits around the world. Many of them veterans who are now suffering from permanent injuries and illnesses ranging from chronic bronchitis to cancer. But when these veterans seek treatment, they face an often unsurmountable burden of proof. For Sergeant Heath Robinson, the VA denied him compensation and prescription medications because it wasn't proven that burn pits were the cause of his illness. Army Sergeant Robinson died in 2020. He was only 39 years old. I have heard from many veterans, service members, and their families who have also been raising the alarm about burn pits. Cancelino of New York told me about her husband Joseph, who was a Marine Corps veteran, an NYPD sergeant, and a dad of 2 girls. In 2017, he developed a very rare, very aggressive form of testicular cancer, as well as thyroid cancer. He died in 2019 when he was just 52. Madam President, this is simply unacceptable. Our service members risk their lives to keep us safe, and all they ask for is care in return. But our government has failed them repeatedly. First it was Agent Orange, then it was the Blue Water Navy vets, today it's burn pits. It's why nearly 2 years ago,
with the midterms coming up and a new inflation estimate scheduled to be released next week, the White House is now making deficit reduction a core part of its intense effort this month to convince voters of the economy, and that the economy is getting better. It marks a pivot, that is. Biden campaigned on wanting to be a transformative president. He pushed for massive spending packages throughout the 2021 year and played down concerns of inflation to boost these proposals. But now the president sounds more cautious about big government spending. The pivot started at his State of the Union speech earlier this year, and during his speech, Biden said, "My plan to fight inflation will lower your costs and lower the deficit." By the end of this year, the deficit will be down to less than half of what it was before I took office. Inflation has gotten steadily worse and stayed high since then. Biden rolled out a 3-pronged approach, one being deficit reduction to wrangle inflation. He's also discussing the deficit in speeches and addressed the country about it again earlier this week. The federal deficit is the amount of money the federal government spends in a year's budget beyond what it has collected in revenue. The shortfall gets added to the country's total debt, and the United States has run up a budget deficit every year since the early 70s. It ran its largest deficit over the years of 2020 and 2021 because of the crisis. So as unemployment dropped, the nation's overall economic recovery sped up over last year. The deficit dropped in 2021. An even bigger drop projected is by the end of 2022 of this year. Over the last few months, Biden has taken credit for this drop in the deficit in his State of the Union address. As gas prices remain record highs, New York has become the last state to suspend its gas tax in an effort to give drivers some relief at the pump. The suspension of the 16 cents per gallon tax runs from June 1st through the end of the year. The national average for a gallon of gas hit $4.62 for regular unleaded gas on May 31st. Diesel gas prices hit a record high on May 18th at $5.58 per gallon. In New York, gas prices hit a record in late May as well, at $4.93 a gallon. The climbing prices comes as millions of people are set to hit the road on vacations over the summer. At the federal level, the Biden administration, at the end of March, announced the release of 1 million barrels of oil. Folks, there is some good news for the monthly benefits. Lawmakers are now urging Biden to pass an executive order that would help out Social Security beneficiaries. Bernie Sanders announced that there will be a Senate hearing next week focused on expanding Social Security, as he and the defenders countered claims that the popular program is headed toward insolvency. While a report released by the Board of Trustees of the Federal Old Age and Survivors Insurance showed that Social Security has a surplus of $2.85 trillion, Sanders said that benefits should be increased for retirees. This is an expansion that could easily be paid for with the rising cap on payments into SSI by wealthy Americans who contribute at a disproportionately low rate compared to most people. Sanders said our job is to save and expand Social Security by making the wealthiest Americans pay their fair share of taxes. Richest country in the world, no senior should live in poverty, and every American should be able to retire. An estimated 50% of Americans aged 55 and older are living without retirement savings.
So far, we've done a good job of trying to strike that right balance between solving for inflation but also keeping things affordable.
Are you going to continue to raise prices on items like goldfish and canned soup?
Well, certainly only if inflation continues to go up. And I think right now, with the pricing that we announced in April, that's our third.
Stocks are heading south again here into the close. We're still at the worst levels of the session. We're down now more than 1% though on the S&P. Scott Wren joins us, Wells Fargo Investment Institute Senior Global Market Strategist. Scott, what do you tell investors and clients to do on a day like today? Are you a buyer?
Well, I tell you, Sarah, you have to have an outlook that's longer than 3 or 6 months if you're going to be a buyer in stocks here. Really, since the beginning of March, we've been reducing risk in portfolios, particularly for people who have a very short-term